Hi, I'm Kathy Way. I work for the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control in the Fire Prevention Bureau. We're going to be talking about handheld portable fire extinguishers, how to select them, and when to use them. Although we're primarily going to be focusing on a multi-purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher, it's very important to know that there are other fire extinguishers available, and by choosing the incorrect fire extinguisher for the fire that you're trying to extinguish, you could actually cause a greater problem, a larger fire, or injury to yourself if you were to use the wrong extinguishing agent. In front of me I have a water fire extinguisher. It's a 2.5 gallon pressurized water fire extinguisher. It's used on Class A only. Class A materials, which is wood, paper, plastic, and household rubbish. You would never use this extinguishing agent on a flammable liquid fire. To put water on a burning fire, such as a fire on top of a stovetop, you could actually splatter the hot burning material, causing damage to yourself and causing a greater fire or a fire to spread. Next to this is a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. Based on the pictogram on the front, it's used to extinguish Class B and C fires. Class B fires are flammable liquid fires, and Class C fires are energized electrical fires. It's carbon dioxide gas stored under pressure, so when it actually extinguishes it, it comes out with a tremendous force. Because of that, you would not actually use this on a Class A fire. Class A fires, again, being wood, paper, household rubbish, and some plastics. Because of the force, it could actually blow those materials around and cause a larger fire. The fire extinguisher that we're going to be talking mostly about is the multi-purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher. As you see from the pictogram on the front, it's used to extinguish Class A, B, and C fires. Class A fires being wood, paper, household rubbish, some plastics. B being flammable liquid fires, and C, energized electrical fires. It is a dry chemical extinguishing agent. It is fairly messy, but because of its properties and its ability to extinguish 3 classifications of fire, you're going to find these in the places where you work. Just so you also know, there's also a Class K fire extinguisher. Class K fire extinguishing agents are used in commercial cooking operations, so you will always see these in conjunction with commercial cooking equipment and the special protection systems that are employed there. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the multi-purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher. The place where you work has already been inspected, and the fire extinguishers, the locations, and the types meet the fire code in the state of New York. So this is what you're going to find where you're going to work. Again, based on the pictogram on the front, it is going to extinguish 3 classifications of fire. That is why it has been chosen for where you are. You're going to be receiving hands-on fire extinguisher training. It's another tool in your toolbox. It's not expected that at any time you will ever have to extinguish a fire, but if you find yourself in a situation where by protecting your means of egress you may have to actually use a fire extinguisher, this will be the one you will be selecting, and it's important to know how to use it. Before you even think about using a fire extinguisher, you have to recognize that in order to use a fire extinguisher safely, there are a couple of things that you have to think about. You have to think about whether you have the proper fire extinguisher available, and in this case we are using a multi-purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher. You have to make sure that you are also trained and confident to use the fire extinguisher. We talked about the fact that you don't actually have to use a fire extinguisher if you are not comfortable doing so. This is just another tool in your toolbox. And you have to be able to stay low and avoid breathing smoke. Portable handheld fire extinguishers are for use with small fires. Just think about a trash can fire that we're going to be demonstrating later, or a fire on a stovetop, small fires. If it's something beyond that, we should be leaving the fire extinguishing up to people who are qualified and trained to do that. So you've decided to use your fire extinguisher. You have to be in a position where you're not going to have your back to the fire. The fire cannot be blocking your exit. You want to use the reach of the fire extinguisher, and in this case the multi-purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher, to your ability. Based on the size of the fire extinguisher, you may have between 15 and 25 feet. So by knowing that you have reach of your fire extinguisher, you don't actually have to stand right on top of the fire itself. If you don't think that you can fight a fire effectively, do not even attempt to do so. To use the fire extinguisher, we have an acronym. It's called PASS, P-A-S-S. It's the steps that you use to deploy the fire extinguisher. P is pull the pin. There's a tamper seal on each fire extinguisher. It holds the pin in place, and it also indicates to us whether someone has tampered with a fire extinguisher. You're going to break the seal and pull the pin out. When the pin is actually removed from the handle, the fire extinguisher is ready for use. You're going to aim the hose, in this case it's a hose, at the base of the fire. I want you to think of flame as heat and light, and you don't want to use your fire extinguishing agent on the flame. You want to use your fire extinguishing agent on the material that's actually burning. So you're going to aim at the base of the fire. You're going to squeeze the handle all the way down. That's going to begin your extinguishing. Then you're going to sweep back and forth, side to side, from the front of the fire to the back of the fire. You're going to use the entire fire extinguisher and never go back and get another one. Before you use a fire extinguisher, you also have to make sure that the building fire alarm system has been activated, that other people are already evacuating the building, and that the fire department has been called. You have to make sure that you have a free exit to your back. You don't ever want to put the fire between you and your emergency exit. And you have to be able to stay under the smoke. If there's too much smoke, you're at risk. You need to close the door, confine the fire, and leave the building immediately. Now we're going to use the multi-purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher to extinguish a fire. We're going to be simulating a trash can fire. I've selected a multiple purpose dry chemical fire extinguisher for my use on the trash can fire. It is in the operable range. I've checked the gauge. It is pointing in the operable range, which is the green pie piece on the gauge. So I'm going to break the seal and pull the pin. And remember, I'm aiming at the base of the fire. I'm going to squeeze the handle all the way down, extinguishing the fire, and I'm going to back away. Remember, you never turn your back to the fire even after you've used the entire extinguishing agent, even if you think that you have actually extinguished the fire, and you always have to make sure that you have egress to your back. In the event that you have decided not to extinguish the fire, you don't feel comfortable doing so, or you've used the entire fire extinguisher and you have not been able to extinguish the fire. This has been a quick demonstration of the use of handheld portable fire extinguishers. Remember, this training is just a tool for your toolbox. You're never at any time expected to use a fire extinguisher unless you have to do so safely in order to exit a building.